The West has earthquakes and wildfires. The North, blizzards. The Midwest, tornadoes and floods.
Oh my God, the bridge collapsed.
And here in Florida, for 6 long months every year, we keep our eye on the tropics.
In late August of 2019, hurricane season had barely begun, and the fourth named system, Dorian, was coming our way. Within days, it was projected to grow into the most powerful storm we'd seen in years, maybe the strongest in decades, and it was headed straight for us. Right now at 5, Tropical Storm Dorian now building in the tropics and could be a hurricane as soon as tomorrow.
It's a really weird storm. I've never seen anything like this.
Have your plan and make those preparations right now.
Stocking up and filling up as Florida residents prepare for Hurricane Dorian to make landfall.
This is a really powerful storm, and it gained a lot of strength yesterday, and just one day went from a 2 to a 4 with a very well-defined eye.
Only thing that has been absolutely certain throughout this entire period of time is the uncertainty of where that storm is going.
I wish that there was a way to make the hurricane go away.
Attention Briny Breeze residents. Mandatory evacuation is now in place.
I've been through, I don't know, 3 or 4 hurricanes here, and this is the only one that really scares me.
We are, however, starting to see it coming dangerously close now to Florida as that eye just continues to sit and spin and move over the Grand Bahama Island.
It's a little package that goes on the bottom of a small latex balloon. It weighs about a half a pound, and it measures temperature, pressure, wind speed, wind direction, relative humidity, and it goes up through the entire atmosphere.
1, 2, 3. Duck, everybody duck.
The waves are especially what's being thrown around everywhere, and as you can see, the tide rising over here.
We're seeing a lot of splash over now into the areas of the park where people would normally be.
Tomorrow, the worst. 20 to 25 foot seas in St. Lucie and Indian River County.
Please pray for us. Please pray for us, everyone. Please pray for us. Me and my baby.
Some amazing pictures coming in right now from the Bahamas. This is the aftermath.
Looking down the ground below it, it was pretty heartbreaking to see. Just the total destruction on especially the northern half of the island.
Those winds are up 165 miles an hour. It has decreased in strength, but look how slowly it's moving. Just crawling right across the north shore right there, Grand Bahama.
We were doing all right until the water kept coming up and all the appliances were going around the house like a washing machine. My poor little wife got hypothermia, and she was standing on top of the kitchen cabinets until they disintegrated. And then I kept with her, and she just drowned on me.
Yeah, now Dorian tied for second, if you will, for strongest hurricane in the Atlantic Basin based off of wind speed.
A tornado warning has been issued for eastern Indian River County and east central Florida. You will want to get indoors as soon as possible.
We're looking at the wave action here of the Indian River Lagoon. That's right, we're not at the ocean. I'm coming.
You know, we got lucky. We heard it from our viewers. We are so thankful.
It's by the grace of God that we were spared, and we really dodged a bullet on this one. Dodged a bullet indeed. That's the phrase that kept coming back to me, that the storm that grew so huge with such destructive winds would stop, then slowly turn north and east and all but bypass us. We were so incredibly lucky. It's hard to think about what might have happened had Dorian come ashore in Florida as a Category 4 or 5 hurricane.
Yeah, but as we were breathing a sigh of relief, the Bahama Islands, they were enduring hour after hour of devastating winds and storm surge that reached the rooftops here. A terrifying monster of a storm. It left behind an unrecognizable scene of destruction, but as soon as it was safe, help was on the way. Freeport, the main port here, is opened, and it is bringing supplies and transportation, something sorely needed to this area.
It's not just water this time.
This is where your donations go. A human conveyor belt passing water and food hand to hand from the Grand Celebration cruise ship.
Homes, cars, everything. A lot of family live in these areas. They died. Nobody survived.
The crowd showed up early, hoping to hop aboard this Palm Beach cruise ship and away from storm-ravaged Grand Bahama Island.
They need to know the situation is dire here. There's parts of the island that are accessible and good, but the people are without water, without food, and they just need help.
Cameron Knowles' home is gone. Until Friday, he lived on Grand Bahama Island. Cameron and his family fled the storm surge that enveloped the island in the back of a dump truck. When we last spoke with Cameron, his family still hadn't made it on board our ship to Florida and were stuck on Grand Bahama.
My parents are stuck on that line down there trying to get in.
It's just chaotic. A lot of people just gathering, trying to figure out how they're going to be able to get on this ship.
If that Bahamian doesn't have a visa or a passport, you're going to have to wait on a line.
And early this morning, this ship will be offloading some 1,500 of these evacuees into the Palm Beach area, but right after that, they plan on reloading and stocking this with supplies and water and taking it right back over to Freeport. That was the first large-scale relief brought to the islands after Dorian had passed. The Bahama Paradise Cruise Line ship, the Grand Celebration, filled itself with supplies and carried back more than 1,000 refugees from the devastated islands.
But just as important as those supplies in the first few days after the storm were the dozens of volunteer doctors who dropped everything at a moment's notice to respond to the humanitarian emergency.
What are you anticipating is going to happen when we get there?
Well, I'm not sure, because logistics is a problem and we don't know what's out there. We don't know exactly what happened, how easy it will be for the patients to be able to come to us. It's going to be a surprise once we get there.
We were led away from our ship by a police escort, the only way to make it through the crowds seeking refuge in South Florida. Traveling Queens Highway, our driver, a policeman, tells us where we are was underwater just 3 days ago.
All of this was underwater.
We go past the city's airport, a walloping storm surge gutted entire hangars. At least one plane scattered along the road to the Relief Command Center.
I drove out to the main street, and I looked down the main street, and there was 2 to 3 feet of water coming.
The command center is where we met this man who narrowly escaped the storm surge.
I told my wife it's time to go. And that time the hurricane force winds is already 100 plus miles an hour. Hop in my SUV. My wife is crying, say, where are we going to go, where are we going to go? I said, we have to get out of here.
Right now, the Bahamas is desperate for medical care. Dozens of doctors who volunteered to come on this first boat into the devastated island spent nearly 48 hours straight conducting medical exams, treating patients, and dispensing desperately needed medication.
This clinic has just reopened and they do not have the medical supplies needed to treat people on this island.
This shelter we visited with American doctors is for children and families. It's in what looks like an abandoned school gym. What we saw, but are prohibited from showing you under Bahamian law, were the dozens of kids staying here whose parents can't be found. As we hopped between shelters, Bahamians told us they were there because they lost everything. 2 young men who didn't wish to go on camera told us they don't recognize their home.
Damage is catastrophic to the point whereby I've seen persons' homes totally damaged.
Archdeacon Earl Hepburn runs this church, now a shelter.
I saw a man when I was visiting persons. He was looking in the bush, and I asked him, and he said, no, he's looking for his wife.
Hepburn is one of the few on the island with a generator. He told us he won't truly know how many are missing from his congregation until services Sunday. At another church and shelter, there were more doctors, more care, but also these holy books drying in the sun, once wet from floodwaters. A step forward.
It was so important that those professionals were on one of those first missions to get in there. And Jim, you went with them on one of those first missions.
Yeah, you know what? These are doctors, surgeons, they were RNs. They dropped everything they were doing, just 24 hours. They got on that ship, and when they landed here on the ground, it made a tremendous difference.
When we come back, incredible and heartbreaking stories of survival and the daunting rescue and recovery effort. In the hours after the storm finally moved offshore, information about what had happened in the Bahamas was hard to come by until a pilot named Brandon Clements sent back the first images of what Dorian had done.
Looking down the ground below us, it was pretty heartbreaking to see just the total destruction on especially the northern half of the island.
As we were watching this, there's no signs of life down there. Did you see people mulling around?
Yeah, we saw some people going around. We saw some people looting. We saw some people huddled up in big groups. We saw people that appeared to be somewhat comfortable on second, third floor of well-built homes that sustained just, weren't completely destroyed. So we saw a little bit of everything. We saw people walk the streets, saw people driving in areas that could be maneuvered, which weren't many, but we saw a little bit of everything.
Did you see any areas where, like, well, obviously an airplane can't land, but maybe a helicopter could land? We're trying to think of how quickly supplies and help and relief can get there.
It's going to be extremely difficult for help to get in because the airport's still underwater. We don't think there's any aircraft fuel on the island. It is isolated island, so I mean you're talking 80 miles away from the next closest airport. It's going to be a big effort to get relief into the area, particularly up to the time they get that airport opened. As far as landing helicopters goes, it's very difficult to land helicopters with all the debris around because the rotors can kick up the debris and the debris can kick back into the rotors and cause major problems. So it's going to be a hard recovery for the next few days, especially since the airport's closed. Now, the other option is to get boats in there, but the seas are also just so big that it really is not an option just yet. It's going to be another day before we even start seeing boats being able to get in.
Later, we watch as a Coast Guard chopper medevacs a man out of the islands with a terrible wound to his left arm, another victim of the deadly storm, whose story we might never hear until Lexi Nall found him recovering in Miami.
Eric Auguste says it's nothing short of a miracle that he's sitting in South Florida with his wife today. It was over a month ago that he was at home in the Bahamas with his family, watching as Hurricane Dorian ripped the roof from over their heads and filled the streets with water.
It's a survival mode at this point. We got to get out of there. She can't swim. None of them could swim, so I'm the only one that could actually do something to get out.
With his 2-year-old daughter clutched in his right arm and his mother in his left, Eric led his family out into the monster current.
And I told everybody, hold on to me. No matter what happened, don't let go.
What happened next, Eric still doesn't understand. He says he was fighting to keep his footing, trying to wade through to the neighbor's house. That's when the wind picked up a piece of debris and it hit Eric, almost instantly severing his left arm.
My baby on this hand, and I was holding my mom. And as I watching her go, I keep moving the hand, hoping that because it didn't feel real. I keep moving it, and she just watches her in and just smile.
Eric watched as the current took his mother, still holding on to that severed arm.
It's like she's going, but I'm just trying to reach her and trying to grab her, but it was not happening.
Using the little strength he had left, Eric passed his baby daughter to his wife and just let the current carry his body.
I was like, Lord, if it's not my time, please save me.
By some miracle, the current carried him to a nearby property where neighbors pulled him from the water and helped him back to his family. And while the eye passed, the group utilized the moments of calm to call an ambulance, but there wasn't enough time to make it to the hospital.
Before they started reversing, the storm already catch up again with us. So we can't make it to no other safety.
Eric's wife made a makeshift tourniquet using a plastic bag and the shirt off her back. And for the next 14 hours, the group rationed water and prayed for the storm to pass. When it finally did, Eric was able to get to Nassau and receive the medical treatment he so desperately needed. Today, he's recovering at the Jackson Memorial Hospital in Miami, grateful for the strength in his right arm that carried his child to safety.
When she comes around me and she gives me a kiss, telling me, Daddy, I love you and miss you after school, she comes there and come give me a big hug. I might not be able to lift her up, but the hug makes me feel good.
His severed left arm, now a painful reminder of his beloved mother and his and her refusal to let go.
That's my mom. I would have never let her go. Never.
At the same time, further east in Marsh Harbor on Great Abaco Island, a school principal fought to save her daughter and infant granddaughter as the rising storm surge chased them into the attic of their home and nearly took their lives.
It is a beautiful place.
A quiet and peaceful neighborhood in Marsh Harbor.
I came for a day and I stayed. Yeah, I just love the place, the people are nice and friendly and the environment is just perfect.
It's where Barbara Johnson called home for the last 7 years. It took Hurricane Dorian just 90 seconds to ruin it.
We climbed up into the roof and within 90 seconds the entire building was literally covered inside with water.
Inside this attic with her daughter and 3-month-old granddaughter Royale, Johnson started feeling pressure in her ears as the water creeped into the attic.
I took a toilet tank cover and tried to smash the roof open.
This is what she saw from the hole in her roof.
When I got up, I looked around and I can see the ocean from side to side. The roofs are covered, most of them. And you can hear people's voices as well, like shouting for help.
The family swam to this nearby tackle shop because the room was above the floods. Johnson said throughout the entire storm, she felt calm.
It had to have been God.
The neighborhood is still quiet, but her worries are now louder than ever.
It's just now starting to set in. Like I started to feel it, let's say since Friday. I can feel like reality is now starting to set in. Yeah. You feel a sense of hopelessness because your home is gone, your job is gone, everything's basically gone, but for the grace of God, you know, we're surviving.
Surviving the aftermath of a Category 5 storm. As a principal of a local school, Johnson says there is one noise she wouldn't mind hearing again.
I miss hearing children's voices. Yeah, children keep me alive.
As bad as this looks, there are areas in the Abacos where nothing is left standing. Our James Torres caught up with a man, a survivor, who was standing on the outside of his village. It's a Haitian refugee community known as the Sandbanks, where there's nothing left but memories.
Whether you see it from the air or from the ground, the places where cars, homes, and families used to be are gone.
Well, when I look at that, that's my heart broken. Because right now, you ain't got no place to receive.
For nearly 30 years, Joseph called this square platform home. This right here?
Yeah.
This was your house?
Uh-huh.
His home, car, and passport and documents taken away by Hurricane Dorian. A community of Haitian culture now turned to a ghost town of debris. And yet, Joseph can still put a smile on his face.
I'll be all right. But you can't say you'll be good, but, well, what I'm saying, but you got a life. You should be all right.
Grateful to be alive. He says that's thanks to you at home for every donation.
I say thank you because they bring some for you to keep you all alive. And I say thank you so much.
He encourages people to keep their relief efforts going. As for his future and what he'll do to stay alive tomorrow,
I don't know what I'm going to do next.
Feelings of loss and uncertainty were common here as the initial shock began to wear off and so much of what these people knew was gone.
Yeah, but help was on the way and from some unexpected places. In the days that followed, our crews returned to the Bahamas again and again, long after other media seemed to decide that the story was over.
We heard incredible and heartbreaking stories of survival and saw people from all walks of life, from all over our area and the nation, reaching out to help.
Are you able to help him load the Bell 407 with water and supplies?
When a private plane lands at the Marsh Harbor Airport, Lawson Bates jumps into action.
Tell him Lawson sent you.
You might recognize Lawson from his reality TV show or from his country music videos. But here, he is just another volunteer.
Need to make sure there's fuel in the 407 is going to tag team us to Cooperstown.
He's trying to deliver life-saving supplies to the survivors of Hurricane Dorian who can only be reached by helicopter.
As of yesterday, we found an area of 40 or 50 people that nobody knew was there.
That area is a village near the Treasure Key Airport. And before last night, no one knew that there were survivors there who desperately needed help.
That's the problem. There's these little pockets of people who don't know where to go for supplies. They don't have any communication, no cell phones. So even though they may be close to a relief station a couple miles, they don't know how to get there or where to go.
But today, help arrived. A group of volunteers with the Mastriani Family Foundation flew from West Palm Beach to the Bahamas. This was not their first relief trip since the hurricane, but today's mission was simple and urgent. Load up a Black Hawk helicopter and deliver supplies to the survivors in Treasure Key.
I just saw the helicopter and I wasn't outside. When I see this helicopter, I took my bicycle. I come down to see exactly what's going on.
The locals in this desolate area are primarily immigrants who didn't speak much English, but they told me they've been without clean water or electricity since Dorian hit.
Do you live here? Yeah. How is it bad?
This This woman told me she lost her home in the storm, and she's been hoping that someone would come and discover the survivors. And though these people didn't want to leave their village, they were all thankful for the life-saving food and water. Volunteers tell me it's days like today that remind them how much work is yet to be done on these islands.
The rebuild here is going to be years and years, and these people are going to need things like fuel and generators and basic life necessities for a long time.
We're committed to help these people for as long as we can and for as long as they need help. It's, you know, it's a major catastrophe. It's apocalypse out there, as you can see.
Grab this towel.
Remnants of this house finally needed to go, some 2+ weeks since Dorian made landfall. Aid workers said the family plans to pitch a tent and live here on what was once their home's foundation.
But God is good, because you have life.
Ursula out in Reckley lives across the street. Her home, like so many, seemed to collapse inward. With little left, she's not quitting.
So I say, God, I give you thanks. And then I cry.
Ursula and her husband have decided to stay and rebuild themselves. They're constructing a wooden shack to live in behind their demolished home. Their surroundings filled with debris and brown trees. As you can see around, this is one of the effects of salt water and storm surge. There is just nothing living. All of the vegetation is dead. Aid workers told us it's hard to know where to start cleaning and rebuilding.
Some flashlights for at night, because obviously there's still no power in some areas.
Thank you.
Most are starting at home and eagerly took the tools West Palm Beach firefighters handed out.
The most important is having the materials in here. That's the most important part of it.
Because they're hard to come by.
Yeah.
This man's home is still standing.
When you come inside first, you wouldn't believe what you see.
They mostly need construction equipment so they can start rebuilding and cleaning up.
West Palm Beach Fire Captain Scott D'Angelo and his team made a point to bring supplies out to Grand Bahama's east side, more than an hour by car, and there are few of them, from the port where donations are rolling in.
I see major progress, and it's mostly with the Bahamian people themselves.
And finally, nearly a month after Hurricane Dorian swept through the Bahamas, an incredible moment as a survivor is rescued from the rubble, trembling and nearly starved. A survivor who could only be named Miracle.
Beautiful little baby Miracle that was found trapped underneath an air conditioning unit.
Is she stuck?
She's stuck.
And with no food and water, and must have survived on rainwater because he's emaciated. This is our 12th trip down to Abaco, to Marsh Harbor, to help find dogs that were left behind after Hurricane Dorian. Howie has survived is a miracle. Just going to be a while till he gets his strength back and we can start physical therapy with getting his muscle tone back.
But today, despite severe muscular atrophy, Miracle stood up for the first time, a sign that his fight is not over yet.
He's a fighter, and he's got the will to live. He knows he's got good things coming.
That is a wonderful story of hope and of the optimism and determination of the Bahamian people committed to rebuilding their neighborhoods and their lives.
Yeah, weeks after the storm, the dangers have passed. The roads are open, food, water, and shelters now available. But for those who live here, a new reality begins to sink in. So much has been lost, too many gone forever, and things will never be the same.
And as the focus shifts from rescue and recovery to cleanup and rebuilding, the scope of the destruction and the monumental effort ahead becomes clear. The work has only just begun.